Hey everyone, welcome back to more Flesh and Bad, and today we're going to be playing some JARL. So for those of you who don't know, JARL was my pick for US Nationals. I played him in CC, went 7-1-3, and I think the deck is still like surprisingly good. I don't know, I stand by JARL as a pretty decent choice for US Nats, and I think he still continues to be as well. I wanted to kind of go over a more kind of like up-to-date list with kind of like the high C situation and also kind of like the evolving meta. I think that we've got a pretty good spread, surprisingly, but you do have to make a couple adjustments now that like new is gone and that kind of thing. So with that, we'll go ahead and kind of get into the list. So for the most part, I think I'm kind of sticking to an Earth Jarl, and I'll kind of explain why in a second. But we're kind of basically keeping a lot of the same Earth theme. We do get the inclusion of Autumn's Touch, which in my original list I cut because of the existence of new. Basically, the plan in new is basically like board out Fruits of the Forest, and then they don't really have like a ton that you can play on Banish. But now that we don't have to worry about it, adding another blue Earth card to the deck is a pretty auto include. But yeah, to talk about, I guess, like what new does to the deck. So like I think that the new matchup surprisingly like wasn't that bad for y'all. Like it was definitely not like super favored depending on like what kind of build they're running, but like you could definitely like play the matchup and it wasn't like completely terrible. But now that we have the banning of new, obviously that opens us up to running some more guardian cards. Like it opens us up for running like the big blues, like the 8 power blues and stuff like that. The only problem with the 8 power blues, specifically in Jarl, like I said, this is assuming that you want to kind of go in the more like Anothos, Rouse the Ancients kind of direction, as that kind of puts you in a bit of tension with a lot of the other kind of like utility cards that Jarl has. So like CLF is a card you almost want to run in basically every single Jarl deck just because the effect is very powerful. Similar thing with like Frozen to Death and like Crumble to Eternity. And these cards all, and I guess also like Winter's Bite to that extent, but these cards all have like a weird amount of tension with both the Nothos and Rouse and like a lot of the other kind of like previous kind of Guardian card synergies. So instead of like trying to kind of warp a Jarl deck to fit like the our kind of like preconception of what a guardian should be, right? Like I honestly think that this is kind of like more so what you should be doing. You should be kind of leaning more into Jarl's strengths as opposed to like I don't know. It like the Rouse plan is not really what Jarl is, I think, like trying to go for. Like I think you can make it work, but it's just like so awkward with a lot of the tools that he already has. So that's kind of why I'm not leaning towards that more like attack action like value ICRL or whatever. Like it's more so that like it feels like you're kind of playing just a fair guardian, whereas like Victor kind of does that role a little bit better. Victor being a little bit more of like an unfair guardian now that he has like the kind of tome gem basically. And then we'll kind of talk about the board a little bit. So I've modified the board slightly from I think my previous iterations. So the kind of gravy hate package we have here is Scar for a Scar plus Midas Touch. I don't think you want too many Midas Touch. Like I think 2 Midas Touch is a little excessive because the 1 Midas Touch is already kind of conditional. Like you basically want to use this ideally on like a low cost ally, like a 1 cost or a 0 cost ally, and then you want to go wide with your hammer and like swing on another ally. So that's kind of what Midas Touch is doing. And then in a pinch, you can use it to like kill like some super important ally in the late game. Yeah, but you really don't want to be like using this on a Humperdinck. Like you don't want to give your opponent 6 gold and then have that be like a burden throughout the entirety of the game. We're still running a pretty decent D-React suite here. So we have like 6 root bound or 6 root D-Reacts between the root bounds and the sync blows. I think that's pretty reasonable. We're also running the 2 Unforgetting Unforgivings, which are just decent value blocks that also kind of feel a little similar purpose to kind of the D-Reacts as well. I've cut down to I think 1 Blizzard. I think my list was running 2 before. I think you can kind of get away with 1 Blizzard a lot of the time. It's definitely a very good card, but like sometimes it feels like a little bit situational and like not entirely necessary, especially when you're kind of committing to a more like block oriented plan. And then for the kind of more aggressive package, I do have some Frost Fangs and Ice Quakes, and you also notice that I went up on a 3rd pummel. So basically we have kind of rough. If you ignore like Oakenold as a pummel target, we have like looking at our 2 cost pummel targets, we have like Plow Under, which is a little bit of an awkward to pummel target. We have the CNCs, and then we also have 2 Frostfangs, which we can pummel. So that's why I'm going up on a 3rd pummel. And I think it's like reasonable into a lot of our weaker matchups. Like I think it's reasonable into Verdance, which can be a little bit of a struggle. And having like the additional disruption, I think does help a little bit in the Verdance matchup. And similar thing for the Ice Quakes. The Ice Quakes are also kind of filling a similar kind of role where into decks that we need to be aggressive, we can run this as like a 1 for 3 buff that also kind of pumps a lot of our kind of disruption as well. And that's pretty much the deck. We are also running the Remembrance just for additional kind of safety, AB3. I did actually notably change, I think, the AB setup a little bit. So now that we're running like the Frost Fangs, we want, and the Pummels, we want to be a little bit more reliant on our Tunic. So one thing I've seen, I think a couple decks from various nationals running is they instead of running a Hard Ice, they basically just run Tunic and like AB3, which I think is pretty reasonable into Verdance, just so that you have the ability to like pummel Frost Fang off of like 3 cards instead of like having to keep 4 cards, which is a little bit of a higher ask. So that's kind of why the AB setup is the way it is. And then yeah, so Heart of Ice just maybe comes back in the list at some point, but I don't think it's super necessary right now. And yeah, with that, that's going to be the deck list for today. Let's go ahead and get some games. All right, playing against a Levia. So in general, I've not struggled too bad into Levia, except when I get like Shed and Death Hydra. I think into Levia, we generally just want our kind of more block-oriented package. Let's go ahead and cut like maybe a Pummel here. I think Blizzard is also like reasonable. What can we cut for Blizzard? Maybe like Tomorrow is like kind of whatever, or Seeds of Tomorrow rather. I think this looks about right. Let's go ahead and run like this. Just kind of be on a more kind of block-oriented plan. Pretty good opening hand, especially with them going first. Means we're going to be able to play it off Roots, Winter's Bite, maybe even Filter, depending on what they do. Okay, and it seems like they're going to go ahead and just send a Beast Within. So I think we're going to take the opportunity here to maybe capitalize a bit on the Fruits of the Forest. So we'll go ahead and block with this. We could cycle with Sink Below here, but we could also just sandbag the Sink Below. I think both are reasonable. Let's go ahead and cycle the Sink Below just to see if we can find like something a little bit more impactful. I think CNC definitely fits the bill. We're going to go ahead and just discard Fruits, gain a little bit of life. And I imagine they might be setting up like an Agile Wind up here. 2 cards in hand. Maybe the hand is just bad. That's also a possibility as well. So we have E-Strike into CNC. That's not bad. Does open us up to getting Flesh Bagged, but are we kind of okay with that? We probably are. If they want to use Flesh Bag on this, I think I'm okay with that. It especially kind of opens up a slot to start giving them Frostbites. I think we'll just take a little bit of a value play here and just do E-Strike and a CNC. Nice little generic combo. But yeah, if we're getting some early counters on armor, I think we're pretty happy with this. Oh, seems like they maybe think better of that. Okay, and seems like they're just going to pass back. We do find a Crumble, which is quite nice. They are hitting in within a Race Face. Those are Decompose looking like. So we can theoretically Decompose next turn, but I think the better play, since they're not going to have an Arsenal, I think we're going to just play out our Crumble here and then Arsenal Plow Under for next turn, and then we should be live for Decompose after that. If we hit a Root Bound, that's also pretty good. But don't think it's super necessary. To see a Deep Root Evil, it's a pretty decent anti-fatigue card, I think. But I haven't seen a ton of Deep Root Evil out of Levia lists lately, but I guess I'm not really up to date with whatever that deck is doing. Pretty nice hand here. Ooh, Call to the Grave. Getting a Howl from Beyond as well. Maybe hoping to banish it. Is that how that card? Yeah. Okay, so maybe hoping to get some fodder for banish. That makes sense. I think here we're going to go ahead and just take the opportunity to... So we can either plow them or we could felling them. But I think regardless, we're just blocking with some more Earth cards just to get them in the bin. Now, which is better between the felling and the plow? So you can felling for 4, and then the next thing gets play. I guess it's like the same math either way, right? Like we're getting +4 on whatever we do next anyways. So I don't know how much it matters. I guess let's go ahead and resolve a felling. I don't know which is better. Maybe there's an argument for Plow Under because they're more likely to keep a card that they want to play in Arsenal. Whereas this, they can get rid of a card from hands that they might not need. We'll go ahead and still do it here. I don't think it's going to matter too much, but if they go off an Arsenal next turn, then that's going to feel pretty bad. So I think on thinking about it for another 30 seconds, I think I do like the Plow a little bit more. It looks like it might not matter here, since it looks like they're just doing 7 no-go again. Yeah, I think the play here is pretty straightforward. I do want to try to keep a Crumble in the deck, so I think we've seen all of our crumbles at this point, so it does make our Oaken Olds a little bit worse in the late game. So I think I'm more willing to block with like the Everbloom here, like Everbloom plus Sync, and we can just Arsenal CNC for one of our 3 pummels in the deck. I think that seems reasonable. Yep, go ahead and just Sync. Stay a nice healthy 42, and then just pass back. All right, hope this plow is annoying for them. We are a little bit fortunate that they chose to keep an Arsenal there. I don't think they... there's maybe an opportunity for them to not keep an Arsenal last turn. But fortunately, we didn't get punished for it. All right, seems like they're just going to pass here. Makes sense to me. Not seen a blood rush from them too. Actually, very low blood debt as well. It's like most of their cards have just been like brute cards. All right, starting to get a little bit more blood debt now. All right, we do have an Oaken Old for next turn. I think we're just saying no blocks on this. Take our first little chunk of damage. There's also maybe an argument to throwing Stalagmite in front of this, but I generally like saving Stalagmite for the Blood Rush turns, if I can help it. So I think we're just going to pass on this. The notable thing about Howl from Beyond is that it does not specify Brute, so they could have theoretically used it to pump CNC if they had the resources, but it looks like not this turn. So I think we're just going to send a CNC here. Good thing about the CNC is that it's also threatening Pummel, which is kind of funny. And then I think we just want to try to keep our Oaken Old Arsenal. Notably, I think we've seen a lot of our crumbles. So we have a crumble at the bottom of the deck, and then we also have used 2 here. So it's more likely than not that we're going to have to like use 2 cards to fuse this Oaken Old, which gets a little bit weird. A little bit less efficient. Oh, I'm just now noticing that they didn't keep an Arsenal. That's fine. This hand's surprisingly okay. We can just send Mangle, double root bound, and then just sit on our Oaken Old Arsenal for a little bit. I think that is reasonable. Do we have the Decompose to do both? I guess we do. Might as well, right? Yeah, sure. We get 4 and 4. And then we're setting 2 more herds up in our bin. But yeah, off to a pretty good start here. All of our CNCs are gone, which is a little bit awkward, but not the end of the world. We do have other pummel targets. I think CNC is obviously like the best one, but the Frost Fangs are a decent backup. I actually don't think I boarded the Frost Fangs in this matchup, so maybe it's just the Plow Unders at this point. And I guess the Mangles and like other attacks as well. I'd mostly just point out the 2-cost ones just because they're a little bit easier to get going. Or they're a little bit easier to use pummel on, rather. But Mangle is threatening the Sash, so I would expect a couple blocks here from them. Yeah, I think this works out just fine for us. We get another piece of equipment broken, and we also get a card out of hand. Still have a lot of our armor still left over, and this is a hand that can open old. All right, it's banishing a Shadow Realm over, so they can actually... Wait, how does this work? You may play a card, banish this away this turn, so that's actually kind of disgusting. They could theoretically play out a CNC after this. The question I have is, do we want to maybe throw Stalagmite in front of this to maybe keep them off doing that? So if the card in hand is like a yellow, it doesn't really help. If card in hand is like a blue or whatever, that also maybe doesn't help. Like it only helps specifically in the case where it's a red, and then in that case they can still just Savage Sash anyways. So I don't know if Stalagmite actually does very much this turn. I think I'm just gonna pass. Our opponent notably hasn't seen any of their blood rushes, so I'm expecting to take a little bit more damage in the coming turns. Might be blocking with this other Oaken Old this turn as well. Could also theoretically just sink our Arsenal, then play an Oaken Old. And then we just pass. Or we just like Arsenal, whatever. I think that might be the play. Could also just give 6 armor here is another option. I think I maybe just like using Crown. How many CNCs have they seen? Just the one. So we'll go ahead and sink our arsenal here. All right, drawing a black card is a little bit unfortunate, but not the end of the world. We can just IP with that. I think we'll get a little bit greedy here and try to send this Okanold. I think there's maybe an argument to like blocking with the other Okanolds and then like armor, but that also feels kind of bad. I don't know about that. All right, so now we have the choice of whether or not we want to Everbloom Life in response to this. I think we'll go ahead and just get the extra point of value here. I think the fatigue consideration is not entirely real. So I think that 1 point of life actually might be more relevant than just like getting a card or like keeping an arsenal or whatever. Go ahead and Arsenal Eisen, which I'm not crazy about, but I think it's still fine if we can get like a point of value out of it. All right, looks like they're coming in with the race face as well. So we can double block with the Unforgetting, Unforgiving, getting Mangle dominate at them, and then also play out Eisen. I guess that's probably what the hand expects, right? Fortunately, we drew both our Unforgetting, Unforgivings in the same hand, but is what it is. Not complaining about getting them, honestly, because we're still just like threatening armor out of them, which I think is quite good, especially given the armor that they have. All right, they are going to turn into Plasma Fed, which means they kind of are on a clock at this point. They have 4 Blood Debt cards. They're not going to be taking any damage at this point, but they are going to be taking like some amount of deck damage every turn. I don't know if this is going to come down to fatigue though, and if it does come down to fatigue, I don't think we're necessarily favored in that spot because they are running 40 something cards. I think we missed the opportunity to play our eyes in there, but that's my bad. Looks like they banished Eye of Phidias and Packing, so they're taking a little bit of damage off this Blood Rush turn, which is good. Yeah, I think that 1 extra point of Eisen value might have mattered. But hopefully don't get punished too bad for this. All right, coming in with the Mandible Claw, I think we're going to make their turn just a little bit more difficult on them. I think this is maybe the opportunity to use Quick Dodge as well. So go ahead and give them the Stalagmite. And then I think we're pitching Fruits maybe just to get a bit of additional block value there as well. Pretty likely that they're going to be able to go 3 wide here. Especially with the hooves at the ready as well. All right, caught them with some yellows in hand, which is at least nice. So I think in this situation, what do we want to do? Kind of want to Arsenal the Oakenol, but it doesn't really make a ton of sense to. Like maybe we're just sending E-Strike here and then holding back the block. I think we're going to go ahead and just use a quick dodge on this, but not fully commit to it. Maybe save some blocks in hand for a future chain link, maybe like Disruption or like Swing Big or whatever. All right, looks like they're going to Hungry Slaughter Beast. So there are a couple of plays we can make here. Option 1 is we send Eisen pitch CLF. Option 2 is we just double block, or option 2 is we try to like E-Strike into Hammer into Eisen, taking 9, which seems a little suspect. I guess we're taking 7 in that case because we still have the Flexors at the ready. I think I kind of like maybe just holding on to the Okanold here and doing Eisen, Hammer, CLF, pitching CLF, and then we keep get a ping out of them. We also get a bit of additional block this turn, so I think this is fine. Again, this is going to be a game that I think is decided not by deck, but just by damage, tempo, whatever. And I think we're winning in that respect. All right, they're going to get a couple more deck banishes. But again, they only have 4 or 3 cards in Blood Debt at this point, so it's pretty unlikely that that's going to be like a determining factor in like decking them. Let's go ahead and just play out the Eisen, making a Frostbite, which should be pretty irritating for them. And then we'll send an additional 3 damage here. So we're functionally getting 4 damage out of 2 cards, which feels pretty rough, but the Eisen and Arsenal kind of be like that sometimes. Alright, go ahead and arsenal the Oakenold and pass back. We'll take a damage from the Frostbite here. Alright, notably not a hand that can really Oakenold, but we could theoretically draw towards an ice card here, and that would work. How many CNCs have we seen? I've only seen the one. It's pretty likely that they're on multiple copies, in which case we probably just want to take this. They have like a CNC and Arsenal. This gets a bit weird. We're just going to sandbag some blocks, wait for any disruption. All right, seems like they're going to go for the Boneyard Marauder. Seems fine. So now I think we could get greedy. So there are actually two options here. We can pummel an Oakenold, no fuse, or alternatively, we can sink, try to find something better. I think we might just be in a position where pummeling an Oakenold might kill them. So I think we're maybe just going to give a little bit of armor here, and then it gets interesting because maybe we still sink below anyways, because if they overcommit to blocking, then we maybe just end up arsenaling this pummel. So I think it's fine here to just go get the block on this off so that we're not like dying before we get the extra one block out of the temper. And then I think we're gonna just try to pummel a unfused Oakenold at them and see if that closes the game. Again, at this point, I'm not really worried about their deck size. Like they're only milling like 2 cards a turn. Go ahead and just pummel this Oakenold. So in order to like get around this, they basically have to give us like 1 extra card on top of this. If they do this, then we can just like arsenal the pummel. Like we don't actually have to go for it. And now they're basically like living under the threat of pummel. All right, so option 1 is we can block 9 on this and hammer for 4. Option 2 is we can take the same play of throwing an Oakenold at them. They would have to block a decent chunk of it. I think the Oakenold play might be a little bit too greedy. So I think what we actually want to do is maybe just start getting them in hammer range as opposed to like going for something too crazy. I don't know. We could try to pummel an Oakenold again, and that would demand more additional cards out of hand. Maybe we'll go for the pummel on the Oakenold. I think we've committed at this point. And if they end up blocking, I think we're going to just use it up just to force a card out of hand at this point. I think they probably put us on pummel at this point, so I think we better use it before it just gets stuck in Arsenal for the rest of the game. Alright, so we're getting 5 damage here, so I think it's worth it. We're also getting a card out of hand, which means that we're going to have tempo. I think it might have been better to just use the pummel on the last turn, because we're kind of in a very similar situation as we were before. I kind of almost didn't expect them to block as much as they did, so that we're kind of going for like a sneaky lethal. But it might have actually been correct to use the pummel on the first Oakenold as opposed to this one. I think it's still working out for us here anyways. Alright, Plow is pretty decent, especially with the Pulse as well. So I think we can maybe just throw our armor here and then Plow under them after Winter's Bite. Kind of like that. Get a little bit aggressive. I do want to stay out of Reckless Swing range. I don't know how many Levialists are running Reckless Swing, but the card you always have to kind of play around with Brute. Blue Flying High is also a very spicy inclusion there. I guess maybe it makes sense as a blue, just like giving you an action point. I've seen a lot of people run Trial Log instead in kind of like a similar spot. Alright, go ahead and Winter's Bite. Just be a little bit annoying. And then we're going to send the Plow, which should hopefully strip at least 3 cards out of their hand. And also get their arsenal, so they're basically living off 1 card. Yeah, go ahead and send the plow as well. I originally said this wasn't going to be a fatigue game because we're kind of winning on deck pretty handily, but we are kind of getting down to the wire here with like sub 20 cards left in each of our decks. All right, found another pummel, which is good. Fortunately, we can't Eisen yet. Oh, they do have the Reckless Swing. So fortunately, we are playing around that. So awkward thing about this hand is that we obviously have the pummel, but it's a little bit worse now that we can't really kill them. I think we maybe are just trying to set up for an Eisen kill by blocking 6 like this and then just pitching Terrace under the hammer, which is kind of rough. I think that might be the best line though. I feel like we maybe punted that one turn by not just like pummeling the Okanola because I feel like that set us back in terms of tempo a little bit. It's gonna just get rid of a Mangle here. But we can hopefully maybe try to get a sneaky kill in with this Eisen. With one thing I'm still a bit worried about are those hooves. But they are out of cards to play from Banish, and they are forced to give us a card basically every turn. So I don't think this is too bad for us. If we find any ice card, we basically win, assuming that they don't have a D-React. Ooh, Blood Rush is scary. Let's hope it's not a good Blood Rush. All right, I think we might be dropping to 1 here. Let's go ahead and block a little bit. We do know that they have the 1 Reckless. I don't know if we've seen another at some point in the game, but they did just pitch it away. So we might be a bit safe. They have a follow-up card here. It's going to be pretty rough. Pretty good draw off the Blood Rush. All right, fortunately do not. It looks like we maybe got a little bit lucky there. All right, let's see if this Eisen will kill. They basically need some instant speed way to clear the Frostbite here. And they also still need to block this hammer as well. Yeah, unfortunately, there's not really a way to stay out of Reckless range there. We'll see if they have it. All right, fortunately, it looks like they did not have it. I think I don't know. There are a couple plays that game that I think I could have made a little bit better. Like, I think that not pummeling that first Oaken Hold and trying to, like, be greedy with the pummel was probably a bit wrong, given that we've already used a lot of our premium, like, pummel targets in the CNCs and the plow unders, and then we've also, like, we had the opportunity to basically, like, deal 5, strip a card out of hand. Instead, we just chose not to. I think that was probably a mistake, but we fortunately at least, like, lined up this similar play next turn, but it wasn't as good. I think that maybe is one thing you have to be careful about is like how many good targets do you have for pummel left in your deck? Because I think at the point where I made that decision, I didn't really check to see how many, and I think that we had used a lot of the kind of better ones at that point. All right, well that was a good learning game. Let's go ahead and see if we can get another here. I'm going to be playing the Verdance matchup, which is definitely one of JARL's tougher matchups. Definitely one AB3 and the Sledge. I wonder if I'm going to miss the Heart of Ice very much in this matchup. I think I actually have a Verdance board. Let's take a look at it. Let's make sure that our equipment's good. And yeah, I think this should be good. All right, let's give it a shot. I think there might be room for like another Rootbound Carapace in here, but I do like to trim on as many reacts in this matchup as possible. A little bit of a new setup than what I'm originally used to. I do think Heart of Ice does put in a decent bit of work in this matchup, so I want to see if I can test the Tunic instead. All right, seems like they're just going to gain a little bit of life on the first turn. Makes sense. And play out a potion as well. Then we're going to go follow up with the Fruits of the Forest, just gain a little bit of our own life. And if they want to Waning Moon us, I think we're fine just like getting rid of 2 cards here. Probably get rid of the E-Strike and the Rootbound and just hope to high roll with the Pummel. I think that's pretty reasonable. We do in general want to try to save most of our disruption for the late game if we can help it. So there might even be an argument to just pitching the Pummel for later. So what do we know about this Verdance given their first 4 cards? So it looks like they're maybe on more of, generally Waiting Moon to me signifies that they're on more of like the attack action version of Verdance, which could be the case here. Let's go ahead and just give up the E-Strike and the Rootbound. I think we will keep on to this first pummel. I do like keeping Disruption in the deck for late game when they're trying to combo us, but it looks like this Verdance is not in particular trying to combo us. I think this is a pretty good spot as any to just play out Imposing Visage here, pitching a Remembrance and a pummel for later, and saving this pummel. And then let's go ahead and grab Crumble here. I think it makes sense to so given that they're not on Plume, I think that also maybe means that they're more like attack action oriented. Let's go ahead and put it on the Bark Skin just to get a charge out of the way. And then we'll go ahead and just Arsenal's Pummel and pass back. So this is going to not be a matchup where we necessarily need to disrupt as much. I think that we do have to kind of eventually be kind of disrupting every turn, but I think here, like this equipment suite, especially without the Surge and Aethertide, kind of signals to me that they're not trying to set up for like the big combo kill on us. They're just trying to do like a bunch of chip damage at us. All right, seems like they're going to go attacking with the Tilling, pitching a D-React and a Plow Under. So we do have to be a little bit careful with how we play this out because we do want the Winner's Bite in the deck. The problem here is that our hand is a bit awkward. Like, we can send Sledge for 7 Dominate, which is not bad. We can also Terrace under it. We tear the Sledge. We also pummel a Tear Sledge. Maybe that's better. Maybe we're supposed to just take 6 here. Like, ideally, I want to be saving some amount of disruption for the late game. But if we get the opportunity to send 11, like, basically, this is a 5-card Crippling Crush almost. So I think that's probably worth it. Does feel a little bit awkward since, like, in general, we want to be doing this later in the game. But this seems fine to me. They might try to give us, like, 7 block exactly on this. In that case, we kind of blow them out with Pummel, which is also quite nice. So yeah, we'll go ahead and react this with the Pummel. I'm assuming they have a D-React here anyways. I guess we could have waited and found out, but it seems fine to get the additional 4 damage, and pretty safe to assume that they have a D-React there as well. So we'll get the 2 of their remaining cards out of hand, which is nice. If they play out Potion, that's probably like the worst case scenario, or like Ring of Roses. All right, we are going to connect with this Sledge, which is quite nice. All right, if we take an E-Pot, I think I'm pretty happy with that exchange, especially, and a Sink Below as well. All right, seems like they're maybe just going to pass here. So we have the opportunity to E-Strike into Mangle. That's option 1. Option 2 is what? We just send Mangle Arsenal E-Strike. I think it's maybe a little bit okay to get aggressive here, especially since we're not using a ton of like real disruption. There's also maybe an argument for arsenaling the Mangle and just sending Sledge after this. But I do like to keep Tunic Counter live for our 3rd pummel and just fixing hands in the future. Also just useful against arcane damage. All right, they're going to rebound this, which seems okay. Yeah, this is kind of why I liked Heart of Ice a bit in this matchup, is just because it like stresses their D-Reacts and makes them have to like pitch additional cards if they want to use it. All right, go ahead and close chain here, pull Tunic. I guess we didn't really need a close chain, but that's also fine. I think we're just sending the Mangle here just to kind of pressure their Bark Skin, maybe force 2 cards at hand, keep them on the back foot if they're going to be more on a tempo plan. Seems like maybe another react here. Try to guess. Yep. So I get him down to 36 all. Not a terrible spot to be in. Only got 2 decomposed so far. So I think this is going okay for us. There's the Felling, though. So this might be the opportunity to just block out a bit maybe arsenal this like Frostfang for later. Let's go ahead and bottom the Oakenold here, I guess, and then maybe just give them 6 block here. Could even give them the Frostfang additionally if we really wanted to. It kind of depend on whether or not we think they're coming up against their plow unders, which is pretty likely that they will have a plow under. Notably, they don't have the decompose for it yet, though, because they only have 2 earths and an action. So I guess we're probably safe from it for a turn. So let's go ahead and just block 6 and maybe Arsenal Frostfang. All right, we find our own plow under, which is fine. Seeds is also pretty good here now that we're keeping an arsenal. Yeah, there's a lot less prevention in this list, so I definitely want to test into Verdance and see if it's like completely unsalvageable. But I think it's still like okay. Definitely do miss like the 2 Oasis in my old list. All right, so this is go again. Interesting. I feel like we're maybe going to be priced into just seedsing whatever. So what if we just like went ahead and could send Frostfang on our turn too as an option. I do want to get the initial decompose started with the plow under though, so maybe we're just like seizing this. I think that might be fine. Feels weird to seeds like non-arcane damage, but I think it's okay here because we're not wanting to block with the rest of our hand if we can help it. I think it's important to get the first decompose online, which plow under lets us do. Oh, they're sitting in with a cadaverous as well. Yep, so that will give them a little bit of additional decompose. So not keeping Arsenal here anymore, which maybe means that we're just blocking a bit here and then arsenaling the Frostfang. Because now the decompose is a lot less appealing if I have to like take a huge life loss on it. All right, we'll go ahead and just pass back. Hopefully no more decompose. They are a bit out of material for it. All right, we do have a Frozen to Death and a CLF as well. So if we can like maybe block 6 here and then do like CLF and do Frostfang, that could be a pretty decent play. All right, I think here I'm kind of incentivized to just block out a bit. We can give them 2 cards pretty safely and just kind of stave off a bit of this arcane damage. And the question here is now, do we want to block 2 on this? Our hand's not really doing a ton. So I honestly think we maybe just pitch the Pulse for later, kind of close to that other Oakenold that we kind of pitched earlier. Oh, we probably should have put the Pulse there first, but that's my bad. All right, let's go ahead and I think just send in CLF plus the Frostfang. Just make it really hard to react to this if they want to try to get a root bound off or something. Right. And fortunately here, it looks like they did have a root bound, but we're going to be able to kind of tax them with the CLF, forcing another card out of hand. All right, they do get the clean cover with the mental block, though, so this is basically kind of like a 3-card for 3-card exchange, but we do get the CLF for another turn, which is pretty relevant. All right, looks like they maybe had an E-Strike in hand, but weren't able to actually kind of cast it there. What do we have on our turn? It's a bit awkward. Like, maybe we're just supposed to overpitch this root bound. We do know that they have an E-Strike in hand, so maybe like keeping the root bound is actually fine. So maybe the play is actually to just send CNC here. Maybe like IP with the Terror Sender Arsenal the root bound, since we know that they have an attack that they want to send at us. Imagine they might be wanting to give us Crown here if they don't have a lot of better plays. Right, seems like we're gonna get the Burn Bear and that E-Strike out of them. I think there's a bit of risk here in arsenaling the root bound, but I think that given the kind of texture of their deck, it seems like pretty likely that we're gonna be able to resolve it. And this is actually kind of a perfect case scenario for root bound. So we get to put a pummel back in the deck, root bound plus block E-Strike, and then send our own falling back at them. So I think that's going to be the play. It is a little bit awkward because I think our pummels are like, they're not that close to each other. They're probably like 8 or 9 cards apart or whatever. We'll go ahead and just cover this up though. Mostly cover this up, and then we get to send back our own felling. We do have the earth, actually just barely. I probably should have kept a little bit better track of that. But that's fine. Go ahead and just send in the felling. Fortunately, this works out here for us. I guess we had the root bound as well. So we did have 3 earth cards at least, which is pretty likely given this point of the game. Right. Seems like they're maybe just going to give us a little bit of block here with the react, and then maybe just try to send a better 2-card hand at us. Seems pretty good. All right, we have a Plounder, which is nice. Looks like they're just going to use the ability on Fruits of the Forest, so gain 2 life, and then ping us for 1. I think we're just going to say no block in the ping, because it's not clear whether or not they're going to be sending more arcane damage at us. Yep, and it seems like they're just going to play out another healing pot instead. Is it definitely a bit scary? I think here we're maybe going to try to Arsenal the Eisen and then just do Everbloom, putting back some piece of disruption here. I guess we have to either put back an E-Strike or a Crumble. Could also take away one of their E-Strikes. Does that matter at all? I don't think it does. I think we're going to go ahead and put back. I think we need the Crumble. Or I guess we don't necessarily need the Crumble. But it is probably decent to have it back in the deck, and then we still have Decompose here. So I think we'll just send in with the Plow. And then if we get plowed back, I don't think that's the end of the world. Notably, we've seen like all 3 of our CLFs in graveyard, which against the more like Surgeon Aether type version would be pretty bad for us. But given that they're not doing that, so we don't really have to like stack that for preventing their combo kill. We do get an Oakenold here, which is a pretty big deal. The unfortunate part of this is that we're going to have to probably just AB a bit here. The Crumble and Arsenal is awkward. Or I guess we probably don't even do that. We probably just like pull Tunic here, pay 1/1/1, or pay 1/1, and then just Oakenold at them. They're not gonna have a Deer React in Arsenal, which is pretty fortunate for us. But we will be taking a little bit of damage here. Unfortunately, we've also not seen the ring as well. All right, definitely a scary spot to be in. But we do have the power of Oakenold to hopefully help us out here. All right, seems like they're maybe just opting to take it here. Hopefully helps us even out the life totals a little bit, and if we hit the 2 random bad cards for them, could be a pretty big deal. All right, Felling over the Crown is a welcome find. Hoping that Oakenold kind of disrupted them a bit here, because we are definitely kind of losing at this point once Verdance kind of gets turned online. The one unfortunate thing about this hand is we do not have Decomposed for Felling, which maybe means we're going to try to go for like Winter's Bite into Sludge at them. Could also just send Sludge at them. So they're doing Everbloom Life. Let's maybe just pay with what here? Can pay with... I don't know, it's not super impressive. They pay with like Frozen. I think we're probably just IPing with the Felling, maybe playing out the Crumble and arsenaling the Felling. Right, seems like they're maybe sitting on a Pulsing Aether Life here. So unfortunately, we don't have that additional Earth card here to turn on our Felling. But I think that we're maybe just playing out this Eisen just to get it out of Arsenal and sending in here. A little bit unfortunate because Eisen's obviously never really a great Arsenal target, but kind of decomposed fodder more than anything, honestly. Not particularly impressed with the Frost Fangs in this matchup. Just seems like I maybe just want like Heart of Ice more, just for kind of like delaying the game out a bit. But I don't know if the delaying the game out necessarily favors us. This matchup definitely seems like a bit of a tough one, especially if they're on more of the tempo plan. All right, this will give us a couple Earth cards for fodder, if we can just afford to maybe block with like the Rootbound here. We do also have Autumn's Touch, but I think we probably want to use that for pitch as well. Theoretically, Icequake, off Tunic, then go Felling, which could be a pretty big swing. It seems like they're just going to come in with their own Felling here. So you have two options. We can either do the Icequake on the Felling, which is a play, or alternatively, bottom the Icequake, block with Rootbound and CNC, which would be blocking 6, and then we get Decomposed Fodder for our own Felling. So really it's the question of whether or not we want to bottom the CNC versus the Icequake. Thinking maybe... I don't know if the Icequake is necessarily efficient here. I mean, it is efficient, about as efficient as it's going to get. Yeah, maybe we're just getting rid of the CNC and blocking with the Rootbound here for only 3. A little bit unfortunate, but I do think we need to get a bit aggressive in this matchup. Especially knowing that they're sitting on a Pulsing Aether Life, which could be very easily used to kind of close out the game. Alright, seems like they're also going to send an additional ping our way, which also seems pretty good. Alright, we're going to go ahead and use our Tunic here and just send a big Felling at them. Hopefully this will be pretty annoying. But it definitely feels like we're on the back foot here, given their kind of build. I feel like I'm more used to playing into the more kind of combo style of Verdance as opposed to like a more back and forth. But I feel like their back and forth is maybe just a lot better than ours. We have notably drawn 2 of our Fellings. So we resolved 2 Fellings and an Oakenhold. I think that we still are missing some of our bigger hitters. Like Felling's obviously good. We definitely want to resolve at least maybe 1 more Oakenhold if we want to win this game. I think we pitched an Oakenhold pretty recently though, so I think we only have like 1 that's live that's kind of coming up at this point. Alright, seems like they're maybe just gonna opt to take it. Hopefully the Frostbite proves to be maybe a little bit annoying. And there's our 3rd Felling. So if there's one way to get back on this game, it's maybe just high rolling off Fellings. But the unfortunate part about felling is that we're not going to be able to maybe get the resources necessary to decompose the enemy. Although we do have the Everbloom. To me, that's not true. Maybe we just go Everbloom to this. It seems like they're maybe just wanting to Heartbeat, though. In which case, do we want to just pay with the CNC and maybe do Everbloom, felling? Alternative is we Everbloom, send CNC at them, or like we pitch this and then hope we draw into another Earth card that we can play next turn. That might be the best value here. Because playing out the Everbloom is not incredibly exciting to me. Like maybe we just want to send CNC here or Arsenal to Felling. But that does obviously get punished by Plow, of which we've seen none. Alright, so they're going to opt to play the Pulsing there, that's fine. Oh, do they only choose the, Huh. I think they only chose the, I think they chose the wrong half of a Pulsing Aether. Well, if that's the case, we're going to go ahead and try to take advantage of that. I think we should be -4 at this point, so functionally at 16. But maybe the CNC will be a bit annoying if they have any reacts stuck in hand. How many reacts have we seen at this point? We've seen 3. So pretty likely they have at least 1. All right, blocking with a Plow Under, I think, is maybe a good sign. It also maybe means they have another Plow Under. Both are definitely possible. Right, pitching your red fruits here is interesting. Let's go ahead and pay with our Winter's Bite and just kind of soak up a bit of this damage. I think that's also the last Heartbeat that we have to worry about, which is kind of fortunate, I think. It seems like they're going to send 1 additional ping here off the Everbloom and put a card back. So I think this is fine. They're probably going to get back a Felling, if I had to imagine. Just because they've gained 4 life this turn, so they can put back basically anything they want at this point. I think we need to get a bit aggressive here and just send Felling, bottoming a Mangle, arsenaling the Oakenhold, and hoping that we can kind of land that hit. Seems like they're maybe just going to go for the more recursive play, putting Everbloom Life on the bottom. Oh, we did not get an Earth card in the graveyard for Felling. Whoops. So if we didn't get an Earth card, that's unfortunate. We could also just send it. Yeah, maybe sending it is just better. Just because I think Oakenhold maybe is the path to winning this game. It's a little bit unfortunate that we don't get the Decompose here. But I don't know if we really got the option. I guess maybe that one turn where we opted to pay with the Everbloom. Maybe that was our one chance of getting Decomposed in the graveyard. Yeah, maybe keeping that Everbloom and taking a bit of extra damage was worth it. Just so we get the extra added benefit out of Felling. Right, go ahead and arsenal the Oakenhold, and this is a very nice hand for Oakenhold. So we get the option to, can we do Icequake? We can also do the Icequake as well, and then Arsenal Eisen. All right, I think this might be our chance. We are staring down a Burn Bear, presumably into Waning Moon as well, but I don't think we can afford to pass on this hand. This hand, I think, is just too good. So we're going to go down to 11 here, but we are going to be profoundly disruptive on their next turn, sending 12. And we also get an Eisen in Arsenal, which is quite nice as well. All right, I think we got to commit to this hand, unfortunately, but it's a pretty good hand to commit to. And we're also going to gain a little bit of life padding off the fruits as well, which is nice, and give us a little bit more decomposed fodder. All right, this is definitely the hand we needed to kind of get back in this game. They do have the Bark Skin and the Crown, notably, still for blocking. But other than that, trying to think of what else they can really have. Obviously, they have like reacts and stuff, but that's kind of fine. So we're functionally landing 8 on the board, at least right now. All right. And I think we're going to connect here. Also, giving them a frostbite might be pretty annoying because it means they're probably just going to Arsenal pass. We get a little bit of extra padding with this Fruit Seer. I think we're in an okay position now. All right, what can we do with this hand? So we can theoretically pummel an Autumn's Touch. That's not very exciting. The alternate play is that we can do what here? We can like send Autumn's Touch Remembrance, or like play out Eisen, send Autumn's Touch Remembrance, and then Arsenal the pummel for the future. Might just be dying before that though. We can't tear asunder here, unfortunately, because we had the Remembrance there. Yeah, I think this is probably going to be the play. Again, these Eisens have kind of done nothing this game, but that's kind of what Eisen does a lot of the time. So we're going to go ahead and send in the Autumn's Touch here, and if they give us no respect here and don't block, then we can maybe get them with the pummel. Seems a little bit unlikely, but if it happens that they don't have a D-React in hand, they maybe just die to this. It's definitely a thing that can happen. I mean, I imagine they still have like rampant growth life that they can maybe use to gain a little bit of padding. I guess they also have like D-Reacts as well. But if we do get to land the pummel, it's a pretty big game for us, I think. Get him down to 3 and also force another card out of hand. Right, we found our Oakenold. It's on kind of a lackluster hand though, so maybe this hand is just trying to send like E-Strike. Alright, seems like they're going to pop their potions, gain a bit of life. I think we're gonna go ahead and take these initial pings and then see what they do. They have a rampant growth, obviously this gets a bit scary, but the additional pings don't really pad our life total all that much. Right, finishing on the CNC. So what do I want to do here? I obviously want to try to Arsenal the Oakenold, but it might not work that way, just given that we kind of need to like take them off of stuff here. I almost wonder if it's better to like E-Strike Winter's Bite Fruits on our turn, and then just Arsenal the Oakenold and try to like play towards that as our kind of like win con. That might be the best strategy here. Let's go ahead and block like this. And then we're going to try to go for the Winter's Bite on their turn. Maybe, hopefully, strand some D-Reacts in hand if they still have any left. How many D-Reacts have they used? We've seen all 3 shelters, all 3 sinks. Maybe we have another Rootbound, it looks like. Definitely getting a bit close to the kill zone here, though. Right, then we'll go ahead and just discard fruits, gain a little bit of life, and Arsenal the Oakenold and try to play towards that as kind of our out here. Still have another pummel, I think, coming up somewhere. I think it's like the next hand, maybe. But this hand's obviously quite nice. The Red Frostfang is a little bit awkward, but we can maybe try to make this work just off of a 1-card Oakenold. I feel like a lot can go wrong with this hand depending on what their play is. Right, so this might be a hand where we're just trying to send the Oakenold. I think that's pretty much our only option. So I think we're going to pay a bit here just to keep our life total relatively high, and also kind of keep us out of Storm Starter range. You notably don't have an action point here, so the most they can do for follow-up is Waning Moon. And then we take 2 off that. We're sandbagging a blue also, which is kind of nice, given that we're kind of within kill range at this point. Alright, let's go ahead and send the Oakenold in. And I think we're probably not going to end up arsenaling this blue. Probably just going to save it in hand, I imagine. Hopefully they don't have another root bound to kind of stuff this Oakenold, because I think that might kill us if they're able to like fully block this out. Which, given their hands, they can block with a non-attack here, cover a decent chunk of it. It looks like they're maybe not opting to do that. So I don't think they have 2 reacts left in deck. Unless it's like a random other color root bound or something. It's interesting. We should be at 4 less life this game also, which means we're at like functionally 3, which means we're pretty much dead. So yeah, I'm not sure if the Frost Fangs are really what we kind of need in this matchup. Alright, there's the last root bound. So hopefully they can't give us any more here. I guess they do have the mental block still. That could be another card that could be used to cover, but looks like they don't have it here. Which maybe gives us an opportunity. We do still have AB3 for what it's worth, so like even if they are able to like send off a Storm Striders, it's a lot less good. Oh, it looks like they're just gonna opt to use it now. Interesting. So this won't kill unless it's like rampant plus something, but even then, maybe they're just doing this for value, which I can also kind of see given that their cards are gonna go away anyways. Unfortunately, we can pay 4 into it here if we really want to. And then that kind of puts us off worrying about the combo. So we'll go ahead and pull Tunic here. Pay 3, I guess, and then pay another 1. And they might not have the ability to kill us here, especially without any like rampant growths. We are going to 4, which is a bit scary. Oh, we are going to be pummeling a Flounder, which is quite nice, assuming we have the Earth, which we do. So I think that's got to be the play. And then they don't typically have a way to do anything instant speed on our turn unless they're running like Snapback. But even in that case, like they need to have Snapback and then also play another card to get that to work. Could have managed an Ice Quick here. I don't think it matters too much. But hopefully this pummel can help us kind of close this out a bit here. If they overblock this, then we can try to Arsenal Pummel. Like if they block 9, maybe that's correct. But if they block 6, I think I'm going to go for it. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like the Frostfangs kind of didn't do very much in this. I'm not entirely sold on Frostfang as a card. I wanted to try it out because a lot of people have given some rave reviews to Frostfang, but maybe I'm just kind of a hater. I feel like I like Icequake more in that slot of just like an aggressive card you can play, or play off Tunic rather. But otherwise, I don't know. I'm kind of a little bit of Frostfang hater, especially after this game. It seems like they're maybe just going to gain a little bit of life and ping us, which is fine. Then what are we doing? What auras do we have left in the deck? Oh, we actually probably should have, hold on. Probably should have paid in that ping, I think. Let's go ahead and pay 1 here, pitching. Pitching, I guess, Frozen to Death. And then I think so option 1 is we send in Sledge. Option 2 is we send in Mangle. Sledge basically demands 2 cards. I don't know if the extra 2 damage off Mangle really matters. Because I think they're at a D-React at this point, so it should just be straight cards they're giving us. And we might have somehow stumbled into kind of a fatigue plan. They've used all their fellings. How many plows have we seen? I've not seen any plows. Unless I've just not been paying attention. Hold on, let me sort this. Oh, we've seen one plow. Sorting feature is so nice. I guess just the one plow. Seems a little bit weird. All right, seems like they're going to give us the mental block here. And notably, if you look at the life total, we should functionally be dead here if they use the other mode of pulsing Aether Life. But I will take whatever win I can get against the Verdance. This is a very tough matchup, especially in this kind of configuration where they're running a lot more attack actions kind of back and forth. All right, Everbloom, definitely a bit scary, but I think we're just going to use a blue here to pay for that. Pay for the Verdance ping, rather. Let's go ahead and pay with, I think, Autumn's Touch, just so we can, like, Winter's Bite into something, like Winter's Bite into Mangle maybe gets us closer to killing them. And we'll flip the 2 here just so we can pay for the Waning Moon, which I assume is going to be the follow-up here. Or Ring of the Roses. Also reasonable. A little bit late for Ring of the Roses. But, yeah, I guess better late than never. Let's go ahead and, I guess, play out the Winter's Bite, and now we're basically, I think, forcing out all the cards from hand here. Barring they have any D-React or, like, Life Gain, Instant Speed, or whatever. Let's go ahead and put it on the head. Then we can pull Tunic here and just send the Mangle. And now we're at a point where the Mangle damage might actually matter. Yeah, but there's one thing about this configuration I'm not super happy with, and that's that, like, we don't have our gauntlets, which also help kind of like push Mangles in the late game or in the early game as well. And we don't have Heart of Ice, which I do kind of miss a bit as well. All right, we're gonna try to pull as many cards out of hand here as possible. So we'll start with the Winter's Bite and just try to transition into kind of a end game beat 'em up. We do get an Everbloom here as well, which could be a pretty massive thing if we can get some more cards back in the deck. Let's go ahead and put back an Eisen and try to kill them. Maybe that's like the best play. I don't know if Eisen's gonna come to the point where it matters though, because we're still just like taking cards out of their hand. So maybe, I don't know. We're still like basically taking 2 cards out of the hand every turn. Oh, they do have to notably pay into the Frostbite there if they wanted to Fruits. I think they maybe should have done that on their turn if they had the opportunity. All right, so we can Tear Asunder. We can't do anything with the Tear Asunder, so I guess we're just going to Everbloom, send CNC, and then maybe just use this Remembrance to buy back some stuff. Let's go ahead and buy back. I think Winter's Bite's fine. We can also just buy back an Everbloom. We have plenty of Earth cards for Decompose. I think that's reasonable. And then I think, let's go ahead and Remembrance. I think at this point we don't even need the Oakenolds. Let's just get back some Fellings and then maybe another Winter's Bite just for good measure. Just kind of pad our blue count. And then we can either send in the CNC or the Sledge. I think I'd rather just send in the Sledge because it's basically guaranteed value. They're out in theory X at this point, so they have to give us 2 real cards here. And we've somehow managed to kind of pull out here. Again, I don't know if we should be winning this game, but we kind of are at this point. And before they kill me out of nowhere with like a Burn Bear or something, but I think that that might be outside the realm of possibility as well. All right, looks like they're just going to go for the ping off Brutes. I think that's fine. We'll go ahead and pay with Visage. We can still actually Tear Asunder off this hand, which might be what we're going to use to kind of close the game here. So we'll go ahead and Tear, and then send in this Sledge for 7. I don't think there's any instant speed way they can deal arcane damage to this, so this should be lethal. Unless I missed a react that they're running somewhere. It looks like they've used all 3 shelters. They've, I think, used all their root bounds as well, or they've used 2 of the root bounds. Where's the 3rd root bound? Oh, there's the 3rd root bound. Okay, so they used all the root bounds as well. So yeah, I think this has it, unless they have some life gain. I guess Everbloom does count, but that only gets them part of the way there. Oh, Mental Block will also work as well. So we get their last healing potion out of them. And then maybe we're going to try to kill with the Eisen here. We can at least ping them with the Eisen, which is kind of good. And we basically got them to kind of 2 cards left in deck, so I don't think there's really an out for them here. Yes, I think we got very lucky that game. All right, so that's actually a very good game for my Verdance testing, because I think that a lot of the testing I've been doing in Verdance has been they're running Surgeon Aethertide and trying to set up healing potions, and then you have to like pitch stack Disruption to kind of prevent them from going off on all one turn. But if they're doing the tempo plan, I feel like we need to have maybe a contingency for that, and it didn't feel like Frostfang was maybe the strongest contingency we'd have there. Like, I almost wonder if this card is better off being Oasis, just because like you get the added flexibility of blocking into both styles of the deck, which I think maybe makes it a little bit more worth it. All right, but I think that's going to wrap it up for today. So this is going to be at least an iteration of a JARL list I've been making. I think that, I don't know, this is going to be an interesting video because I don't think I like this iteration of JARL that I put out. I think that there's, okay, so what do I like about this version? I think I like this side of the sideboard, right? Like, I like the Root Bounds, the Scars, the Sink Blows, and the I'm forgetting Mice Touch. Like, this all seems very good into Assassins, the Field, like into Gravy as well. Like, I think the Scar for Scars, if you haven't tried them, these are very good into Gravy. I didn't get to showcase them in this video, but trust me on that. A little bit better than E-Strike even, just because it's just a 1-card like action point basically. But for this package, I don't think I'm sold on the triple pummel plus the Icequake. It feels like it's just kind of going against the grain a bit of what JARL is trying to do, which is like to try to slow the game, block as much as possible, and then eventually you get to like your better threats like Oakenold. Like, I feel like sending a mediocre threat and taking a bunch of damage to send that threat is like kind of whatever, and I don't know if I'm entirely sold on this like Frostfang here. So I think I'm gonna work a little bit more on this deck, but these are kind of my initial thoughts of JARL, kind of like in high seas. I do think that there's like a big blue version of the deck that's around there, or is around and like exists. That's running like Rouse the Ancients and all the good old Guardian attacks that are like trying to send like an Othos for 6 and stuff like that. I think that deck is somewhat real, but it just, again, it anti-synergizes with some of JARL's best cards, which are Crumble and CLF and like even Winter's Bite to some extent. I don't know. I'm just not entirely sold on that style, but I can definitely see it being a thing. I just don't know what the advantage of that style is necessarily versus like a more earthy JARL like this. All right, but I think that's going to wrap it up for today. So again, take this list with a grain of salt. This is kind of me just trying out some new things for high seas. And yeah, thank you all for watching, and I'll see y'all next time. And a special thank you to all the folks who decided it would be a good idea to give us $2 on Patreon. We really appreciate the support, but it's obviously never required.